Chapter 2374. Working Together 3. Yun Qingluo had once told him that her blood was required to draw the attention of the particular crocodile. Also, she must be the one to take her blood sample. If others chose to take her blood forcibly, the blood would not work as bait for the silver ring crocodile anymore. However, it was important to note that Yun Qingluo may not have told the entire truth. Di Fui did not want to risk his life and venture into the unknown all because of her lies. In return, he made a few promises to Yun Qingluo in favor for her help. For example, when everything had been solved, he would let her go safely. She also requested that he not tell anyone about what happened to help her keep her dignity. If Di Fui chose to disagree, Yun Qingluo would rather die in agony than give out her blood to save her enemy's life. Her terms were not difficult to be fulfilled, so Di Fui agreed. He was a man of his word, so Yun Qingluo was not too concerned. If she did everything that she promised, he would definitely deliver. To answer Gu Zijia's curiosity, Di Fui briefly added, "Whoever started the trouble should end it. We have to find a particular silver ring crocodile that was used to make the poison in the first place. Other crocodiles would not work. Only she knows the way to find it, so she has to come." Gu Shijio found his explanation quite unbelievable, but made no further comment, for she could not tell if what he said was true or not. Instead, they discussed who should be the bait and where was the best location to kill the crocodile. These silver ring crocodiles were very alert, and they always stayed near to the core of the swamp. Therefore, they had to choose a spot that was close to the core. However, Di Fui had done his research and found that no place around the center was safe enough for them to fight those creatures. In addition to the toxic air, there were also countless of other poisonous creatures there. The discussion continued, but no clear plan was formed. All of a sudden, Yun Qingluo broke her silence and suggested, "I know a secret place that is not too far away from where the crocodiles live. Also, there will not be any other creatures there." All eyes were then locked on her. To Gu Zijia's surprise, Yun Qingluo had willingly participated in the discussion. Di Fui did not seem quite as surprised. "Where is the secret place?" Yun Qingluo turned around and started walking. "Follow me." She led the way. Gu Shijio was unsure if she should trust her, but she followed her anyway. Di Fui signaled his men to stay close with Yun Qingluo to keep her safe too. As for himself, he chose to walk side by side with Gu Shijio. Zhu Duqing would not let himself be left behind, so he quickly walked next to Gu Shijio as well. Unlike the other two, he could not convince himself to follow Yun Qingluo around. "Is she reliable? She had better not take us to a dump site," he whispered. Gu Shijio shook her head and said, "The worst-case scenario is that we end up in a place that is equally unsafe. For now, let us give her a chance." Zhu Duqing did not want to argue with his master, so he kept quiet. Di Fui quickly added, "Shijio is still the smart one." Gu Shijio said nothing more, but focused on Yun Qingluo, who was still taking the lead. She walked with her head held high and did not look back at all, but her fingers were obviously clenched in frustration. She must be jealous that Di Fui was walking with Gu Shijio. It seemed that Di Fui was trying to make Yun Qingluo jealous. Perhaps Gu Shijio was just a tool to help him achieve that. A sudden idea occurred to Gu Shijio. She wanted to make Yun Qingluo feel bad, though she had decided not to take revenge on her because of Di Fui. She smiled and drew closer to Di Fui as she said, "You know me well. You are indeed the father of my child." She would rarely get close to Di Fui, so he took the opportunity and held on her waist. "Of course, you are the mother of my child." He pulled her entirely into his arms while Gu Shijio was momentarily frozen by his enthusiasm. His display of affection was slightly beyond her tolerance. Chapter 2375. Working Together, for softly, she protested, but he did not let her go. Instead, he held on to her even tighter. The two escorts were quite observant. They noticed that Di Fui was busy showering the lady with affection, but they dared not look back. Attentively, they only listened closely to the conversation. Certainly, they had not forgotten that Yun Qingluo's safety was their biggest concern. They had to be alert to keep her away from danger. As for Zhu Duqing, he frowned in utter annoyance. Not wanting to observe this any longer, he reached out his hand, trying to pull Gu Shiju away, but before he managed to touch her sleeve, Di Fui seemed to have blocked his approach. Zhu Duqing was speechless, while Di Fui gave him a nonchalant look that was not quite friendly as a sign for him to stay away. Suddenly, Zhu Duqing was reminded about what happened the night before, when Di Fui turned him into a bamboo tree. If he were to provoke Di Fui even more, he would probably turn Zhu Duqing back into an immobile bamboo tree in this land full of danger with nowhere to escape. Overwhelmed by a sudden sense of panic, he decided not to do anything that would annoy Di Fui, though compliance was certainly against his will. Gu Shiju tried to pull her hand out of Di Fui's grasp, but was not successful. Di Fui held on to her even tighter, making her regret making the mistake in the first place. "Let me go," she sent a directed audio to him. "I will not." His smile remained, but the way he replied was rather firm. "You should not be using me as an excuse to make her feel bad. Baby, we have a son together. You and I are a couple." Gu Shiju was speechless. Determined, she confessed, "Di Fui, as I have told you, I found the child in the woods and adopted him. There is no need for you to keep me around, just for me to play the role of a mother. Try to find me a daughter." Gu Shiju did not answer, for she did not know what to say. She stomped on his foot in frustration, thus leaving a mark on his nicely clean shoe. "Your shoe is dirty. Use the cleaning spell to get rid of the dirt." In order to perform the cleaning spell, he would have to let go of her waist. Smilingly, Di Fui answered, "The mark is pretty nice. It is like the motif of a flower. I will keep it." Irritated, Gu Shiju then offered, "Should I make another motif on the other shoe, so they can become a pair? I do not like things that come in pairs. Let be. It looks best when it is created randomly. Deliberation is not the style I would prefer." DFYI gave her an unexpected answer. Gu Shiju was speechless again. He was indeed very confusing sometimes. Suddenly, Di Fui whispered in her ears, "I knew that you were trying to make her feel jealous as a form of revenge." Gu Shiju did not know how he realized her intention. The man must be using her to make Yun Qingluo feel bad as well. At this rate, would it be surprising if Yun Qingluo decided to lead them to their doom? All of a sudden, Yun Qingluo could be heard screaming. A giant mouth appeared right in front of her very quickly and unexpectedly. Very soon, a streak of red lights could be seen flashing out from the giant mouth that was aimed right at Yun Qingluo. The attack caught everyone off guard. Even the two escorts behind her were unable to react. Before the streak of red lights managed to take Yun Qingluo away, another flash of 7-colored light came to the rescue. Crack! After a loud explosion, the creature trembled helplessly on the ground. It was already cut in half, and there was blood everywhere. Chapter 2376. Working Together, 5. The seemingly red light from before was actually a tongue. The beast behind the tongue was usually very aggressive and violent. Even without its tongue, it would have no intention of letting Yun Qingluo go. It was ready to swallow her at any opportunity. The two escorts tried to respond to the situation to save their princess. However, to their surprise, another red light flashed by and forced them to retreat. Meanwhile, Yun Qingluo was on the verge of being swallowed alive before a 7-colored light came to the rescue. It was from Di Fui. He thought he was able to force the creature to let go of Yun Qingluo with one strike, but it was not the case. He could only take down one of the creatures. Yun Qingluo must not die. Hence, without a second thought, he rushed into the mouth of the creature that held Yun Qingluo hostage. Before the creature sealed its mouth, Di Fui was able to take Yun Qingluo's hand. He launched another strike with his left arm and aimed it exactly at the tongue that Yun Qingluo was unfortunately tangled with. Blood splashed out like a fountain while the creature was clearly in pain as it loosened its tongue. Di Fui seized the brief window and pulled Yun Qingluo out of its mouth forcibly. He then pushed her away to the escorts, who tried to keep her balance. Di Fui's entire body was already halfway in the creature's mouth. He managed to get Yin Qingluo out, but was unable to free himself. In a fit of rage, the mouth full of sharp teeth was closing up. Fortunately, Di Fui was very agile. He would not let himself die, though he was unable to escape. With a leap, he rolled into the creature's big mouth. Then, before its mouth was completely sealed, he raised his sword and quickly stood it tall to prevent the beast from closing its mouth. There was a slight gap, so he quickly escaped through it. Gu Shijio raised her arms and grabbed him before using her teleportation skill. In the blink of an eye, they were already 10 feet away from the creature. Di Fui looked up and saw a pair of pitch-black eyes staring back at him. Trembling, Gu Shijio asked, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" She screamed at him at a very high pitch, fueled by her frustration. Then, she quickly studied him to see if he was hurt. There was no apparent injury, so she decided to read his pulse to see if he was suffering any internal injuries. His pulse was not faltering, so he must be okay. Relieved, she could finally feel her legs shaking involuntarily. She cared about him. There was no doubt about that. His impulsive act had scared her. Gratefully, Di Fui held her hand in his and reassured, "Have I scared you? Don't worry. I am fine." Gu Shijio then realized that she had been a little dramatic, so she pulled her hand back and tried to sound unemotional. "You are overthinking. I only hope that none of my teammates are hurt." She was indeed stubborn. Unfortunately, her immediate reactions had completely sold her out before. With a tug, Di Fui took her in his arms and gave her a tight squeeze. Softly, he whispered in her ear, "I am not overthinking." He then added, "You really do care about me. You may deny it as much as you want, but I know that you care." Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She was not very comfortable with his flirtatious behavior, as there was still another woman waiting for him over there. Was he trying to put up a show? Nonetheless, her heart throbbed with excitement, and she could not think straight. This time, he released her before she even asked. With a gentle tap on her shoulder, he said, "Wait for me right here. I will go and kill the wild animal." He took a quick leap and raced towards the venomous, gigantic beast that resembled a 7-colored dinosaur. The beast was in a rage as it had been hiding in the bushes for some time in an attempt to capture and swallow Yin Qingluo alive, but to no benefit. Instead, it had to suffer an injury. Chapter 2377. Working together, 6. The beast was initially ecstatic as it thought it was getting a buy one free one deal. However, its upper chest was penetrated before it could swallow any of them. It was in pain and anger. Hence, it came out from hiding and blocked everyone's way. It had colorful scales on its body, yet it looked strange and ferocious. Besides that, it seemed to be quite lazy as it stayed at the same spot for an extended time. Instead of hunting, it seemed to wait for its prey. Occasionally, when some harmful beast passed by its mouth, they would be caught by its tongue and become its food. Unfortunately, it had a bad day today. 2 of the guardians from the Devil Palace brought Yin Qingluo to a safer place and helped her up to her feet. When she had steadied herself, one of the guardians guarded her while the other one rushed over to the scene. The beast looked extremely ferocious, but it was not very nimble when it fought. It could only defend itself with its thick and rough skin. Its strongest weapon was its 3 tongues. However, any expert in Kung Fu would not be eaten as long they were cautious enough during the battle. Apparently, Di Fui was better than expected. Coupled with the help of his guardian, it was a guaranteed win for this battle. As expected, the beast was defeated in just 15 minutes. Di Fui sliced its throat with a sword, and it slumped on the floor. When it seemed lifeless, the guardian who worked together with Di Fui kicked the dead body. It looked ferocious, but was completely useless. Before he finished talking, Di Fui shouted, "Retreat." He pushed the guardian backward. Almost at the same time, the dead body exploded like a bomb. It was just like a firecracker explosion. A minute later, the guardian slowly got up from the ground and tried to clean all the flesh that was splattered on his body. He puked. "What's this?" It exploded even after it is dead. He was the nearest to the venomous beast, so it might not have only been splashes of flesh and blood from the creature if Di Fui did not push him away in time. Even though Gu Shijio had struggled out from Di Fui's arms earlier, he managed to rush to her in time and pull her into his embrace when the explosion occurred. He protected her with his body and even covered her ears. Therefore, she only heard a soft burst, and she did not see anything. His embrace was as warm as usual, and she felt a warmth in her heart when she was tightly embraced in his arms. She almost wrapped her arms around his waist too. Fortunately, she managed to stop her urge and struggled out from his embrace, like how she used to do. She took a glimpse of Yun Qingluo and noticed that the guardian protected her, and she managed to avoid the explosion. However, she was slightly slow and got splashed by some blood. Thus, she was busy cleaning herself. Although her face was covered by a mask, and Gu Shijio could not see her facial expressions, her fingers were shaking, and she seemed to be affected. Gu Shijio shifted her gaze away and silently pondered. She wondered if Yin Qingluo was miserable. When she turned back, she found Zhu Duqing pursing his lips as he stared at her. She coughed softly and shifted her gaze away, only to find Di Fui pondering as he walked around the dead body. He turned around and asked Yun Qingluo, "Do you know what it is?" Yun Qingluo held her breath and shook her head. "I don't know." Di Fui asked Gu Shijio, "Do you know?" Gu Shijio also shook her head. There were too many unknown species in the swamp, including that venomous beast. Di Fui said nothing more. There were so many kinds of poisonous creatures lingering around in the swamp. The sudden emergence of the beast did not surprise him. Fortunately, the incident was finally over. Yun Qingluo's kung fu was the worst among them all. She was taking the lead before, but Di Fui decided that she should walk in the middle of the line in order to prevent the same incident from happening. She promptly agreed to him. Nevertheless, the two escorts from the palace continued to stay by her side to protect her. Di Fui, along with Gu Shijio, took turns to take the lead while Zhu Duqing remained as the last man in the line. Gu Shijio could understand why Di Fui wanted to lead, but she did not quite know why he had to take her together with him. She was just as weak, with only a year left to spare if she did not find the cure. It would not be so appropriate for her to take the lead, would it? In fact, she was not allowed to use her spiritual power at the moment to prevent worsening her situation. It would be better to avoid using her power at all in order to prevent the toxins in her body from reacting again. Furthermore, even though she had agreed to take the lead with him, she did understand why he had to keep holding her hand. She tried to suppress the urge to question him, but failed. "I think we should keep a distance from one another. If anything happens unexpectedly, at least one of us may survive the attack." Di Fui was holding her left hand and did it so naturally. "You're good at teleporting. If there really is any unexpected event, I believe that we can immediately teleport to safety," he swiftly replied. Gu Shijio did not argue with him, so both of them continued the journey. If they chose to teleport away in times of danger and left the rest of the people to die, it would not be entirely inappropriate. However, she recalled how Di Fui risked his life just to get Yun Qingluo to safety. The past incident was really a close call. If I had not reached out to you in time, would you end up in the beast's stomach? Di Fui gave her a firm nod. Yes. Gu Shijio was surprised by his response. Were you trying to get yourself killed? She demanded furiously. You have been pushing me away. I certainly have thought about killing myself, he said calmly while staring at her. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She knew that if she had not been able to pull him out in time, he would find another alternative and fight his way out alive by stabbing the creature right in his stomach. He had a protective barrier around his body, so the gastric acid would not do him any harm. He knew how to control his breath and survive without the need for air. There was certainly enough time for him to slash the creature's stomach open. However, it was unavoidable that he would get his entire body stained in the blood of the beast. Gu Shijio had been trying to keep him away, and yet he would not stop flirting with her. He even tried to act cute and look pitiful in order to get her attention. The worst thing about it was that she seemed to be quite comfortable with him. Her cold, cold heart started to burn with a sense of desire. She recalled that Di Fui told her that he had already put their past behind him and that he never wanted to see her again. What was all this about, then? The man was, without a doubt, a drama king. There was no way she could tell what he was really up to. Meanwhile, the team continued to explore the poisonous swamp by following Yun Qingluo's guidance. To their surprise, they managed to find an underground tunnel hidden beneath rows of bright red bushes. They proceeded into the tunnel, only to realize that it was actually a very deep passage with twists and turns that left them no clue about the final destination. "This is a shortcut," Yun Qingluo said. "I used the passage to go into the depths of the swamp. At the end of the tunnel, there is a hall that is connected to the nest of the silver ring crocodiles. It has been years since I last came here, so I'm not sure if the place is still well intact. You may choose to take the path or not." The team was rather uncertain, but believed that the passage would be helpful. Chapter 2379. Being pampered. The underground tunnel was about 100 meters deep into the surface of the earth. The entire passage was dark and moist. The walls were not evenly scrapped, and the group believed that the passage was created when a giant creature made its way through the ground. Occasionally, there would be some pools of mud on the ground, which was something very commonly found in an underground cave. Gu Shijio was still taking the lead at that point. Out of curiosity, she would walk closely to the walls of the cave and take a closer look. Di Fui followed her. "What have you found?" he asked. "This place has been abandoned for a long time, at least 10 years. "What else?" "The passage must have been created by some giant beast, perhaps an underground dragon. There is no sign of human activity involved in the making of it." "What do you think?" "I think that something is not quite right about this cave. I have never heard about such a gigantic beast in the poisonous swamp." Di Fui sighed. "Neither have I. Due to the lack of human involvement here in the swamp, it is normal that some unknown beasts still exist." She nodded in agreement without saying anything. To be honest, she did not have much faith in Yun Qingluo, as she believed that Yun Qingluo must still be planning something big and evil. At the moment, she had not figured it out. She could only hope that Di Fui had really convinced Yun Qingluo. After all, Yun Qingluo was really obsessed with Di Fui and would listen to everything that he said, which was why she was here in the poisonous swamp with him, though it was against her will. The team continued walking deeper into the passage. It was a rather peaceful walk without many obstacles. Sometimes they would run into poisonous beasts that were accidentally trapped in the cave, but the beasts did not pose any great threat. Di Fui could always finish them off easily. The dangers posed in the cave were significantly lower than that of the swamp. The escorts were relieved. The safety of the princess had always been their greatest responsibility ever since they left the palace. It was a rather exhausting task, especially in this poisonous swamp where every encounter was a fight. There was hardly any time for them to catch their breaths or take a rest. The underground passage was the first time that they could catch a breath. The two escorts continued their journey next to Yun Qingluo, who was in the middle. She was very particular with hygienic issues and would not let anyone touch her, so they dared not get too close for fear that she would be disgusted. They knew a little about the prolonged and bitter quarrel between Princess Yuan and Gu Shijio. Also, they were aware of the prince's affection for the Devil King. They also knew that Di Fui treated her as a sister because he was not interested in anything intimate. They also knew that Princess Yuan was punished by the Devil King for what she had done to Gu Shijio, so they actually thought that she would not be able to leave her bed for at least a month. To their surprise, she was with them in the swamp after only a few days. The two men did not know the feud that existed between the rest of the people. It was obvious that the Devil King had treated the princess and Gu Shijio very differently. He obviously fancied the latter. They noticed that Princess Yuan did not have much strength left. Her spiritual power was only slightly better than an ordinary mortal. In the heart of this poisonous swamp, her life was at the greatest risk, like an egg with a cracked shell that could be destroyed anytime. Yun Qingluo knew how to manipulate people. She used to be really kind to all of Di Fui's courtiers and would send them some gifts every now and then, so the courtiers were quite friendly with her. Di Fui used to pamper her all the time, so the courtiers treated her the same. They would do or give her anything that she asked for. That explained why she was able to get the universal net so easily. As for now, they could tell that the princess was unusually quiet. She did not talk much like the way that she used to. Chapter 2380, Being Pampered 2. As for now, they could tell that the princess was unusually quiet. She did not talk much like the way she used to do. Her complexion was as pale as a sheet, so they could not help but sympathize with her. Men were born with a natural instinct to protect the weak. The two escorts saw how vulnerable the princess was and felt drawn to protect her. At times, they would try to do as she asked, just to make her feel better. They took a look at the Devil King and Gu Shijio, who were walking side by side with one another. Then, they looked to Yin Qingluo, who was so weak that she looked as though she would tumble down the passage at any time. They were sad for her. One of them, whose name was Hua Qianjun, was more emotionally affected than the other guard. Hua Qianjun knew a lot about the use of poisons. Also, he possessed great kung fu, so he ended up becoming one of the closest men that fought alongside Di Fui. He was very loyal to his king. He had feelings for the princess and was her secret admirer. He had never expressed his affections for her before. Often, he took care of her needs without others knowing, just to make her life better. He knew how determined the princess was during this trip. She must be fatigued, but insisted on keeping in line and walking alone without any help. She walked with her head up, but it hurt him just to see her acting so strong. When he saw Gu Shiju stomping on Di Fui's shoe before, he was quite surprised that Di Fui was not concerned about his dirted shoe and was, on the contrary, quite happy about it. Their conversation continued in laughter. Di Fui had even placed his hand on Gu's zigious waist. Hua Qianjun heaved a heavy sigh. He knew the Devil King very well. Di Fui was obsessed with hygiene and was reluctant to have anyone getting too close to him, especially women. Although he was kind to the princess, it was only in the form of material comfort. He had never gotten too close to her. Princess Yuan tried to get his attention by holding onto his arm, but all of her attempts ended with the same rejection. At one point in time, the courtiers actually thought that the Devil King had a different sexual orientation. But later, they realized that he was not interested in men either. Therefore, they assumed that the Devil King was actually born without any emotions or need for intimacy. Even if he got married to a woman, they believed that he would hardly spend any time with her. The only way that he would treat the Devil Queen was with respect and proper distance. Seeing the Devil King's change of attitude when Gu Shijio was around had changed their minds. The Devil King had never been so close and so playful with any other woman. He seemed always to want to have physical contact with her. The Devil King was clearly in love. None of his restrictions and conditions applied to her. Hence, the prince's affection was destined to be unreturned. Other than sympathizing with the princess, he was actually feeling quite hopeful for himself. "Princess, are you hungry? I have fruit," he offered while handing her the fruit. The fruit was a celestial fruit. It was a gift by Di Fui as a reward for his contributions. The fruit tasted good and had the ability to strengthen one's spiritual power. He had been keeping it for a long time and decided to give it away to Yin Qingluo. Surprised, Yin Qingluo gazed at him with her watery eyes that were clouded with tears. His heart skipped a beat as soon as he noticed the hopelessness that she could barely hide. She shook her head and said politely, "Thank you, but I am not hungry." Her voice was trembling, but she tried hard to resist the urge to cry. Under her mask, he could see her lips that were pursed tightly into a thin line. Her pale face contained almost no colors at all. Hua Qianjun could not help but comfort her. "Princess, actually, there's still plenty of men out there." Yin Qingluo gave him a tight smile and answered, I know." She must be crying. Tears started to stain the layer of thin gauze on her face. She tried to wipe the tears that kept flowing out from her eyes. Then, she turned around to hide her embarrassment from Hua Qianjun. Hua Qianjun's heart ached for her, but he did not know how to make her feel better. All he could do was to stay close to support her and keep her safe. "Are you tired?" Can I give you a hand with anything? Thank you, but there is no need, she responded with a smile. She was finally able to control her emotions. The more she tried to look happy, the more he sympathized with her. They kept their voices very low, so the rest of the team could barely hear anything from their conversation. The sounds of wind and running water in the cave made their voices almost inaudible. Di Fui, who was still leading the way, suddenly smiled and shook his head. Gu Shijio was busy checking the source of the running water when she caught Di Fui smiling. "What are you smiling at?" she asked. Di Fui waved his sleeve and proudly said, "Don't you think I look better when I smile?" Gu Shijio remained silent. She decided to pretend as if she never asked. The journey had been quite pleasant so far, and about 2 hours later, they finally arrived at the deepest part of the swamp. The land was very spacious, almost as vast as the size of a football field. The gigantic beast must have spent some time here, rolling and wandering around before making its exit. There was a pathway that could lead them back up to the surface. They could not see the end, but could hear the sound of the beasts growling from above. Right above is the nest of the silver ring crocodiles. Should I go by myself to lure the crocodile here, or are you coming with me? She gazed at Di Fui intensely. Without hesitating, Di Fui answered, "I will go with you. Let's go." Yinqing Luo acknowledged his response with a firm nod. Di Fui proceeded to give one of his guards an order. "You will proceed with the princess." Then, he looked at Hua Qianjun and said, "You will stay behind with Miss Gu and Mr. Zhu." Hua Qianjun decided to oppose. "Your Highness, my knowledge of the use of poisons is definitely better than Brother Jean's. Let me go up there with you, and let Brother Jean stay behind." Di Fui answered with a tight smile. "Are you trying to go against my command?" A simple reply was able to make Hua Qianjun feel completely hopeless. "My apologies, Your Highness. I shall do as told." Di Fui glared at him. He wanted to say something else, but decided against it. Gu Shijio suddenly offered, "I should go with you, so that we can take care of each other." She could use her teleportation skill if anything went wrong, and get all of them to safety in time. Di Fui disagreed. "No, you should stay here and wait for the upcoming attack. 3 of us are more than enough to lure the crocodile." Despite some hesitation, Gu Shijio decided to do as planned. Upon reaching the surface, the 3 of them confirmed that it was really the nest of the silver ring crocodiles. Many crocodiles of varying sizes were submerged in red mud, revealing only the surface of their heads that were slightly above water. These creatures had the face of a crocodile, but the body of a hippopotamus. They were easily the size of an elephant. If all of them moved simultaneously, the ground would undoubtedly tremor. As soon as the 3 people from the group were visible, the crocodiles were immediately drawn to them. Their emerald eyes gazed at them while they cautiously approached. The 3 team members could easily ascertain that these poisonous beasts ruled the entire swamp. They possessed an intimidating aura that prevented any other creature from getting close. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. The guard who accompanied them, Jean, was an experienced fighter but was still anxious about the crocodiles. However, Yinqing Luo did not seem to be afraid at all. She stood confidently next to Di Fui. "Brother, are you sure that you will not regret any of this? Are you that cold-blooded to risk my life to get the cure?" she asked while locking her eyes on him. Di Fui did not hesitate at all when he responded, "This is your only chance of redemption." Yunqing Luo closed her eyes and murmured, "I may die after drawing blood from my heart." Chapter 2382. This woman is crazy. Brother Jean was stunned by her statement. Did Di Fui intend to extract blood from the heart of the princess? He looked at Di Fui silently, trying to assess the situation. Di Fui seemed calm. "You can extract your blood normally. I will protect you." When he was talking, there were already 7 or 8 silver ring crocodiles rushing toward their direction. The shrieking sounds were frightening. These crocodiles were massive in size, but as agile as wolves. They appeared to be able to fly from their blood-red wings that emerged from their bodies. Di Fui leaped to higher ground and faced them head-on as he said, You won't have much time left to live." Then a battle ensued. Colorful lights shone around them, which made it appear as though the clouds were turbulent. Yunqing Luo looked up at him for a moment. That purple shadow that was dashing around the place was someone that she had tried very hard to get close to over the past year. It seemed as though she was shortchanged, however. When he had questioned her about the cure, he was dressed as celestial masters were. Being too captivated, she blurted out the truth without a second thought. However, the man changed back into his black attire right after she answered him. She thought that he was wearing it to make her happy, so that she was more willing to draw blood from her heart. But over time, she realized that it was all for Gu Shijio. She raised her hand and pulled out an icy-looking thin blade. There was a tube with a thick silver needle on the back of the knife. This knife would only release the blood from her heart if it were angled into the heart correctly. If the blade were used appropriately, there would not be any damage to the individual's body or circulatory system. Unsurprisingly, the blade was a gift to her from Di Fui. He said that this was the utmost compassion that he could show her. Perhaps it was true that a man's heart was cold and ruthless. He could disregard the life of his savior without a second thought, just for another woman. It was unfortunate for Yuan that her heart still longed for him despite all these circumstances. She untied her robes, revealing most of her chest. Guardian Jean was standing next to her, and he quickly moved his eyes away and turned his body slightly. This was the best angle that he could position himself in order to protect her and not look at her. Di Fui, Yunqing Luo, suddenly screamed. Her voice was sharp and fierce. It startled Guardian Jean, and the sword in his hand almost fell to the ground. In the sky, Di Fui was busy holding off the crocodiles. He thought that she was in danger and finally looked at her from above. He saw her chest exposed even through the red mist. He frowned. Here, the poisonous mist was still potent. Once an individual's skin was exposed, it would be eroded by the toxic fog. Therefore, Di Fui specially requested Zhu Duqing to make a small alteration to the clothes worn by Yunqing Luo. At the left chest position of the clothes, there was an alteration to allow a thin knife to enter and exit. It was usually tightly sealed but could be adjusted. In order to take the blood from her heart, Yunqing Luo only needed to open a small part of her suit without exposing her skin. However, Yunqing Luo was probably out of her mind right now. She had removed the entire suit. Was she looking for death? Did she want to commit suicide here, so that Gu Shijio would have to die together with her? This woman was crazy. Di Fui's eyes darkened. He had just attacked a crocodile and was about to go to Yunqing Luo to try to stop her. He could see that the knife he gave her was already inserted into her body. Although it had penetrated her skin, there was no blood on the surface. However, one could see a trail of blood dripping from a knife and into Yunqing Luo's palm. She pulled the knife out once she drew enough blood to fill a bottle of wine. Chapter 2383. Di Fui, you didn't keep your promise. This knife was specially made, and the blade had a strong hemostasis effect. After the knife was pulled out, her wound did not release any drops of blood. However, even though there was no blood on the surface, her heart was injured. When the knife was pulled out, her body suddenly swayed. It was apparent that she was really pale too. Guardian Jean, who stood next to her, quickly held on to her. Once she regained consciousness, she suddenly pushed Guardian Jean away. She held the bag of blood in her hand and looked up at Di Fui. I fulfilled your wish. She poured the blood on her hand, and it rolled down all the way to her foot. The smell of her blood filled the air, and there was a low roar in the depths of the blood pond. A slight tremor could be felt at that very moment. On the surface of the pond, a wave of more than 10 feet tall was visible. From beneath it, a crocodile suddenly showed its giant head. The crocodiles in the vicinity bowed down as if they just saw their king. The beast was more than 10 times larger than the surrounding crocodiles. Its head was the size of a big hill, and its pair of eyes looked like 2 green lanterns. However, its body was not as colorful as the other crocodiles. Instead, it was red like the sun. Also, There appeared to be a black flower in the middle of its forehead. "Oh, whoa!" The beast screamed, and it shook the heavens and the earth. It expanded its wings, and the red muddy water in the pond gushed all around. "It's the one! Quickly run!" Yin Qing Luo shouted at the top of her lungs. She wanted to retreat, but she was severely injured and was too weak to run. Guardian Jean, who had been guarding her, was unable to reach her as he was being attacked by a silver ring crocodile. The silver ring crocodile stretched out its claws and attacked him ferociously. Guardian Jean quickly rolled away to dodge its attack. But when he got up, the crocodile attacked him again. He could not get rid of the creature for the time being. He saw that the king of silver ring crocodiles was rushing toward Yun Qingluo, but he could do nothing. He was certainly worried, and his face turned pale. Yun Qingluo closed her eyes and sneered. She thought to herself, "Di Fui, you didn't keep your promise. You said that you would protect me." Shua. A loud crashing sound was heard. She felt a sudden tightness at her waist, and she was suddenly thrown into the air. Her heart raced as she wondered what happened. She opened her eyes and found herself wrapped in purple cords. The one who was controlling the cords was Di Fui. He was floating in the air, and his finger was pointing at the two crocodiles that were attacking Guardian Jean. There were two colorful lights shot toward the two crocodiles that forced them to retreat momentarily. He then shouted, "Retreat!" Guardian Jean took the opportunity to escape from the two crocodiles. He tried to get as close as he could to Di Fui, and together they ran toward the entrance of the cave. At that very moment, almost all the crocodiles were alarmed by the situation. There were hundreds of crocodiles hunting the three of them. The king of the silver ring crocodiles led the chase. The speed of these crocodiles was extremely fast. Hence, Di Fui pulled Yin Qingluo with him as fast as he could. Yin Qingluo was still wrapped in the purple cords and felt like a flag being blown by strong winds. Even though Di Fui kept his word, it was easy to see that there was a feeling of disappointment in her eyes. It seemed that he did not even want to touch her, despite the fact that she had kept her word. "Di Fui, you are too cruel," she thought to herself. Yin Qingluo seemed to have spoken the truth earlier. The crocodiles did leave their territory, but only up to 1,000 feet. Therefore, after the three people were more than 1,000 feet away from the swamp, the crocodiles turned back. In the end, only the biggest silver ring crocodile continued the journey. Its two big lantern-like eyes were staring at Yun Qingluo, who was still trapped in Di Fui's purple cords. Its eyes were getting red. Chapter 2384. No one could be compared to me. The three of them finally led the giant king crocodile to the entrance of the cave. Initially, it stood at the entrance and watched as Di Fui and his two companions leaped into the cave. During its contemplations, it succumbed to the temptation of Yun Qingluo's blood and finally also jumped in. Inside the large cave, Gu Shijiao, Zhu Duqing, and Hua Qianjun were alert and ready to attack. Hua Qianjun was a specialist in the use of poisons and was also an expert in martial arts. Having followed Di Fui as a subordinate, he learned about array formations from the Devil King. Among all the guards, he was the one who learned the fastest. He was almost as good as the Devil King, so every time the guards needed to set up an array formation, he was always chosen to lead it. He believed that only a few people in the Shuro world could compete with him. Therefore, when Di Fui left with Brother Jean and Yun Qingluo, he immediately began to ask Gu Shijiao and Zhu Duqing to listen to his commands. Zhu Duqing had seen the formation before, and he was quite impressed with the man's knowledge. If Gu Shijiao were not here, he might have listened to Hua Qianjun's instructions. But now, he used the fan on his hand to point at Hua Qianjun and said, "Let my master set it up. You listen to her orders." Hua Qianjun was stunned. He frowned. "This is not the time to compete. The Devil King will soon bring the crocodile back. Our time is very limited. Please listen to my orders and don't delay us." Zhu Duqing smiled. "Your formation is far worse than my master's. If we listen to you, it will waste even more time." Hua Qianjun's facial expression changed at this remark. He involuntarily clenched his fists. Mr. Zhu, I know that you want to protect your master. However, please don't turn this task into a joke. When it comes to setting up array formations, no one can be compared to me in the Shura world, other than the Devil King himself. You're just Brag Jin. Chapter 2385. Struck by Lightning. He had already used all the tricks in his book to try to break the array, but found himself still trapped in Gu Zijia's simple formation. Chua! A big stone was suddenly moved, and Gu Shijio appeared 3 feet away from the man. She glared at him and said, "It has been 5 minutes. What do you have to say?" Hua Qianjun remained silent. He looked at Gu Shijio with some respect. He was willing to own up to his loss, so he said, "I will listen to your instructions." "Very good. You have already delayed us for 5 minutes, so you must pay it back quickly. Please move the big rock over and put it here." She pointed at a specific location. Hua Qianjun looked at the big rock and then looked around. He felt bad. In 5 minutes, Gu Shijio and Zhu Duqing had already finished arranging at least half of the array. There were more than a dozen large boulders in different positions, and there were several poles of bamboo standing in the gaps between the rocks. The big rock that Gu Shijio asked him to move was the largest one in the whole cave. It was about 10 tons and was located in the corner of the cave. Hua Qianjun had to do as told, so he headed over to the big rock. Fortunately, he still had a lot of energy. Hence, he managed to move the heavy boulder to its designated position without a break. While analyzing the formation again, he seemed to feel a sense of familiarity. His heart raced as he asked, "Did you learn about array formations from the Devil King?" He could see that Gu Shijio and the Devil King had quite a complicated relationship. They were probably together in the past. Perhaps the Devil King had taught her about array formations. Gu Shijio glanced at him with a faint smile. "Would you believe it if I told you that I am the one who taught this formation to the Devil King?" Hua Qianjun was stunned. "How could that be?" Gu Shijio leisurely replied, "Anything is possible. Besides, you hardly know me. I almost had your Devil King as my disciple before. Anyway, quickly form up the array. I am very weak, so I have to rely on both of you." Hua Qianjun felt like he was struck by lightning. While he was diligently moving the big rocks as quickly as he could, he asked, "Is Miss Gu much older than the Devil King?" Gu Shijio kept silent for a moment. This had always caused her trouble in the past. Before she answered, Zhu Duqing laughed out loud. "That's funny. In this world, people are respected by their capability, not by age. Take me, for instance. I am much older than Miss Gu, but I also got her to be my master. Perhaps your Devil King used to be less capable than Miss Gu, so it is not surprising that he would consider her as his master." Hua Qianjun looked at Gu Shijio and sincerely said, "I understand now. Our Devil King is more capable than Miss Gu at the moment. He is a student that surpassed his teacher. Therefore, he did not worship Miss Gu as his master in the end, right? What an analysis." Gu Shijio was too lazy to entertain him any further, so she ignored him. Zhu Duqing used a fan to knock Hua Qianjun on the head. "Where did you accumulate so much nonsense? If your master learns about what you had just said, he might peel off your skin. Quickly, get back to work." Hua Qianjun was speechless. He finally grasped the subtleties of this array formation in the process of arranging the giant rocks. His attitude toward Gu Shijio turned from skepticism to admiration. Perhaps Miss Gu's spiritual power might not be as good as the Devil King's, but her abilities in array formations were certainly superior. Hua Qianjun could not help but stare at her again. Miss Gu was, indeed, a beautiful and capable woman. It was not surprising that the Devil King admired her so much, and that the princess would not stand chance. Initially, he always thought that Gu Shijio was a latecomer and a third party who manipulated the feelings of the Devil King. But now, it seemed that this was not the case. Perhaps their princess was the third party? All 3 of them were masters in their own right, and their array-forming techniques were excellent. Thus, when Gu Shijio instructed them to arrange the array according to her specifications, they could understand her very well and finish their jobs quickly. It was initially a very complicated and challenging array, but it was arranged in less than a quarter of an hour because of the talented hands involved in the arrangement. While they were at work, Gushijo quickly explained the functions of the array, as well as the matters needing attention during the fight. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Her explanations were simple and straightforward. They were also well-organized and straight to the point. Over time, Hua Qianjin's admiration for Gushijo only continued to grow. She was certainly no ordinary woman. She was unlike Princess Yuan, who was also very beautiful, though in a delicate manner. She could easily trigger any man's strong desire to protect her. On the other hand, Miss Gu was very independent and confident, yet also charming at the same time. It was impossible for anyone to ignore her. Even if Hua Qianjun did not want to admit it, deep inside his heart, he felt that Miss Gu and his Devil King were a better match. Nonetheless, he still sympathized with his princess. Suddenly, the three of them heard a rumbling sound from above. It was clear that Di Fui and the team had successfully attracted the attention of the crocodile they intended to capture. Judging from the noise, they were coming back very soon. Gu Shijio quickly teleported to the tip of the highest rock and said, "Stand by at your designated positions." Zhu Duqing and Hua Qianjun rushed to their own respective positions. In a frenzied state, Hua Qianjun expressed a concern. "Miss Gu, what if the other three do not recognize this array?" This array required 5 people to hold up. The 3 of them would not make any mistake. However, if the other 3 did not recognize this array, they may even find themselves trapped in the formation. Your Devil King knows this array, and I will take care of the other 2 people. While they were talking, 3 figures dashed in at lightning speed, while a behemoth figure followed suit. Gu Zijia's eyes were sharp as she quickly noticed the purple cord Di Fui used to tie Yun Qingluo. Furthermore, Yun Qingluo's clothes were in a mess. Her face was slightly greenish, and her lips were black. This was a sign that she had been poisoned. Boom! The silver ring crocodile slammed into the array. Quickly, Gu Shijio teleported to Yun Qingluo's side and shoved an antidote into her mouth. She quickly covered her mouth to force her to swallow the medicine. As Gu Shijio moved so quickly, Yun Qingluo did not have time to prevent the medication from entering her throat. Hua Qianjun was shocked and subconsciously jumped over. "Miss Gu, what are you doing?" "Saving her life." Gu Shijio spoke very briefly and handed Yun Qingluo to Guardian Hua. "Bring her to the corner of the cave that we passed earlier. It is the safest there." Yun Qingluo never thought that Gu Shijio would save her. She opened her eyes and looked at Gu Shijio with complicated feelings, but she did not speak and closed her eyes again. Guardian Hua did not dare to challenge Gu Shijio and immediately took Yun Qingluo to the said place. Chapter 2387. I didn't expect you to save her. This place was in one of the corners of the cave. If the battle went according to plan, Yun Qingluo would remain unharmed. Meanwhile, the Firmament Stone sent an audio message to Gu Shijio. "Master, I didn't expect you to save her. Don't you hate her?" Gu Shijio answered indifferently. "I hate her, but I don't want to put Di Fui into a difficult situation." The Firmament Stone was silent for a while. "Master, do you really love Di Fui?" Gu Shijio was stunned by the question and did not speak. "Master, if he is not Huang Tu, will you still love him?" The Firmament Stone added to its previous question. Gu Shijio heaved a sigh before answering very directly, "Yes." She had fallen in love with him. She was sure of that. It was not because he could possibly be the reincarnation of Huang Tu, but because of who he was as a person. Even though she was waiting for Huang Tu to be reborn, she could not hide the fact that she had fallen in love with this man who was much younger than her. She had previously used the excuse that Di Fui was the reincarnation of Huang Tu just so that she could justify her feelings for him. The Firmament Stone did not expect Gu Shijio to be so open with it. "Master, I agree. Living in the present is the most important thing. You are meant to be together." At this moment, the formation was intact. As she headed back into the formation, she warned the firmament stone, "You'd better keep your mouth shut. We have to focus on killing this crocodile." The firmament stone remained out of her mind from then on. It was a spiritual jade, and it needed to absorb spiritual power to support its normal operation. Gu Shijio hid a pile of spiritual crystal in its storage space, so it had been shutting itself down to absorb the power from these crystals. However, it did not shut down completely. It still allocated some of its attention to sense the mood of its master. Therefore, it roughly had some idea of what had happened to Gu Shijio recently, although it did not know the details. It observed Di Fui and felt even more surprised. He actually wore the same attire that Celestial Master Zui used to don. Did he get back his memory? The Firmament Stone could not believe it. The heavenly laws would not let him restore the memory of his past life so quickly. After all, his entire existence was erased by the heavenly laws. It was a huge accident that Yun Qingluo could retain her memories of him. There should not be any other mistakes. In any case, Gu Shijio managed to reunite with him again. Both of them had no past memories of each other, but they could still find each other by instinct. This showed that they were truly meant to be together. The Firmament Stone was pleased by the thought. On the other hand, the crocodile that was attracted to this place was in a difficult situation. It had cultivated for thousands of years. Although it had not transformed into its human form yet, it had already obtained human wisdom, and its brain capacity certainly noteworthy. It had no interest in humans because they were too negligible for it. That was why it did not appear, even though the rest of the crocodiles were attacking Di Fui and his team. However, it later smelled the special scent of blood from Yun Qingluo, and its blood started to boil. Its blood rushed into its brain and ignited all of its cells, just like the excitement one receives from cigarettes due to its nicotine content. It had lost its ability to think straight, and as a result, it was now trapped in these giant rocks. When it came to this place, it naturally saw the large and small rocks that were arranged all around the cave, but it did not think too deeply about them. Besides, the biggest rock was only the size of its paw. Why would it need to be afraid of them? However, after it went in, it found that something was not right. Initially, there were just a few rocks around the place, but now it had become multiple towers. The bamboos between the boulders initially looked thin and harmless, but they were now massive trees with thick trunks. These big trees were quite dense, and they collectively covered up the sky. The king of the silver ring crocodiles was enormous, so anything it saw was usually as small as an ant in its eyes. However, this time was different. It was the one that felt like an ant while everything else was so huge. Even the humans it had chased earlier suddenly looked like giants. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. It had fallen into an illusion. Whether it was a person or a beast that fell into the trap, there was always a subconscious fear for an opponent that was larger than itself. Hence, this was the same for the giant crocodile. After it rushed around, trying to escape, it suddenly felt paralyzed in fear. It had always been dominant when it fought. Its sheer momentum when traveling was enough to cause its opponents to flee. It was also always surrounded by its followers, so it was never afraid of anything when it was in the poisonous swamp. However, it did not have its followers around this time. It was all alone. Furthermore, the illusion made it fearful of what it saw. This crocodile was considered to be very powerful. If it fought seriously, even someone at the level of a golden immortal might not be able to beat it. However, the illusion made things different. Any human would already strike fear in its heart. The purple robe man gave it a bad headache. All the tricks he used on it made it felt extraordinarily painful, and it almost collapsed. Furthermore, the woman in the green dress was the most outrageous. Although her strength was weaker than the purple-robed man, the angles of her attacks were extremely excruciating. She solely picked on its weak points, and it was unable to block any of the attacks. Yun Qingluo sat on a large rock while observing the battle. She saw that the silver ring crocodile was almost defeated, and it was only a matter of time before it was killed. Her fists were clenched, and her eyes also flashed briefly. The situation seemed to be a little unexpected. Guardian Jean stood in front of her and protected her the whole time. Naturally, he did not observe her facial expression, as his attention was entirely on the battle in the field. He saw that his demon king was extremely agile and quick. He continuously appeared in between the giant rocks, and every time he did, he would successfully hit the crocodile and injure it. At the same time, Gu Shijio stayed in the middle of the array. Whenever she noticed a weak point in the array, she would teleport to the position and efficiently fill the gap. She and Di Fui rushed back and forth in the battle. It was a dazzling sight watching them synchronize perfectly. As for Mr. Zhu, he seemed relaxed. He twirled his goose-feather fan in his hand, and it caused changes in the bamboos. They either grew bigger, or their leaves would turn into sharp weapons that were aimed at the crocodile. As for Hua Qianjun, he was on standby and ready to reposition any boulders that would fall out of place. Occasionally, he would even launch an attack on the crocodile when it was not prepared. Guardian Jean was so excited witnessing the scene. He really wanted to join them. Unfortunately, he did not understand this array, and he had a guardian Qingluo, so he could only watch in awe. He was certainly very excited, but he did not dare to leave. Guardian Jean, you can go and help them. Yin Qingluo said softly. I can't. You are still seriously injured. Someone must protect you. No problem. This place is very safe. The beast is not able to attack me here. Besides, I also have my own self-defense mechanisms. Yin Qingluo took out a magical weapon from her storage space. It was a protective cover. Once people hid in it, they were given some extra protection. Guardian Jean was slightly convinced at that point. Yin Qingluo continued, Go and help them, even if it is just to help them to move the big stones around. Chapter 2389, Protection Alas. Guardian Jean was convinced. He nodded as he responded. In that case, let me go and help them. You should still be careful. If something is wrong, do not hesitate to call one of us. Yin Qingluo nodded. All right. Soon, Guardian Jean joined the battle. He was also skilled in array formations, but was not as good as Hua Qianjun. However, he had spent some time watching from the sidelines and was able to remember some steps. He was certainly smart, so that helped. He did not attempt to fight with the crocodile just yet, but instead assisted Hua Qianjun in repositioning any boulders. Hua Qianjun had basically positioned himself at the weak point of the array. With Guardian Jean's assistance, the pressure he felt was relieved. As Gu Shijio teleported around the place to secure the array, she suddenly saw Guardian Jean and was stunned. She asked, Why are you here? Gu Shijio quickly tried to locate Yin Qingluo. Although she found her, there was a big stone blocking most of her body. Guardian Jean had already learned from Hua Qianjun that Gu Shijio formed this array, so he admired her. He told her what Yin Qingluo said to him, and also offered to help. Since Gu Shijio tried not to use her spiritual power, she found herself very fatigued from this battle. If Guardian Jean were able to help her, it would certainly ease her work. Therefore, she agreed to Guardian Jean's proposal. Nevertheless, before they could really do anything together, Di Fui had suddenly emerged. When he saw that Guardian Jean was around Gu Shijio, his facial expression changed. Guardian Jean, why are you here? Go back and protect Princess Yuan Yuan. You must not let anything happen to her. The Devil King brutally scolded Guardian Jean. He did not dare to refute, so he could only agree and turn around immediately. Gu Shijio was stunned by this action and almost tripped over a big stone. Her body seemed to jerk a little. Di Fui held her from the side and asked, What happened to you? Gu Shijio pushed him away. Nothing. Quickly finish off the crocodile. Di Fui frowned. When he held her, he felt that her hand were cold. It was not normal. Just as he was about to check further, he heard Yin Qingluo screaming, Help! As he looked in her direction, he saw that the crocodile, which was still trapped a moment ago, had broken through the array and was headed directly toward Yin Qingluo. At that very moment, Guardian Jean had not arrived by her side. Di Fui was also far away from her. It was too late for either of them to rescue her. However, Gu Shijio quickly teleported over. Before Yin Qingluo finished screaming, Gushijio had already appeared by her side and teleported her to safety. The crocodile had raised its paw to attack Yin Qingluo, but only managed to tear Guzijia's sleeve. Fortunately, none of them were hurt. They appeared in another relatively safe place, and Gushijio put her down on the ground. When she just put her down, Difui also arrived at the scene. He grabbed Guzijia's hand and asked, "Were you hurt? Let me take a look." He was particularly worried about the arm, which the crocodile scraped. Gushijio pulled her hand back. "I am fine. You don't have to check." She turned and teleported again. Difui was speechless. He looked at Yun Qingluo, whose face was pale. She looked back at him and tried to speak. "Brother, I am fine, don't worry." Although her voice was soft, Difui was able to hear it. Difui did not care about her right now. Instead, he instructed Guardian Jean, who had just arrived, "Look after her. If you dare to leave her side again, I will peel off your skin." Guardian Jean quickly agreed and did not leave her side again. Yin Qingluo pursed her lips with a pair of teary eyes. "Brother, I know you still care about me." Difui glimpsed at her and casually replied, "You overthink. Yin Qingluo, stop fooling around. Otherwise, you will face the consequences." He turned around and walked away when he finished. Guardian Jean was stunned by what he heard. Yin Qingluo? This was the first time he learned that Princess Yuan Yuan's name was actually Yin Qingluo. Yin Qingluo's heart skipped a beat by the realization. Upon brief contemplation, she put on a smile on her face. What could be worse when she was already at her lowest point in life? The silver ring crocodile seemed to have sensed its death approaching. Anxiously, it became even more ferocious. Its power seemed to have doubled while its size also grew. It pounded on the array formed by Gushijio, trying to find a way to escape. Most of the features behind the array were based on illusions. In the past, the crocodile used to be affected by the illusions, particularly when it saw a large mountain falling toward it. However, it decided to ignore them and began to counterattack with its claws when it saw the mountain falling toward it again. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. After all, the mountain was just an illusion. It was just a few huge rocks. Hence, it was crushed into dust when the crocodile smashed it. It seemed to be surprised that the mountain was so fragile. Instead of fearing the illusions, it decided to attack them with all its might. It also spat a massive puddle of venomous red liquid to try to break the array. It did not hold back any of its abilities. Suddenly, the team found the rocks being destroyed one by one. Thus, Hua Qianjun quickly filled the gaps with new rocks. Unfortunately, he was unable to replace the rocks fast enough since half of the rocks in the array had been destroyed in less than 30 minutes. Everyone was getting anxious now, especially Guardian Jean. He was instructed to protect Yun Qingluo, which was supposed to be the most straightforward job. Unfortunately, the crocodile began to attack him once it figured out the secret behind the illusions. If the rest of the group were not working hard to stop the crocodile, it would have torn the two of them into pieces. In addition, the venom from the crocodile and the strong gusts of wind it created made matters even more challenging for them. Hua Qianjun, stay in this position from now onward. Difui made way for him. Yes. Hua Qianjun dashed quickly to where Difui stood. "Mr. Zhu, please assist me." Difui rushed to Zhu Duqing and drew a spell on his palm. "Print this on the bamboos with your spiritual power." Certainly, Zhu Duqing followed Difui's instructions. The spell seemed to be glowing on his palms as he tapped on the bamboos. Strangely, a layer of protection formed on all the bamboos that had been cast with the spells. Thus, it was not so easily damaged when the crocodile smashed it. Meanwhile, Difui cast a spell on the rocks in the vicinity. There appeared to be a protection membrane formed around the rocks after he cast a spell on them. As a result, the quantity of the bamboos and the rocks remained unchanged for a short period. However, this strategy consumed a lot of spiritual power, and Zhu Duqing began to feel dizzy after casting spells on the bamboos. The two men with the highest spiritual powers were busy casting spells. Hence, The responsibility of guarding the array fell on Gu Shijio and Huan Qianjin's shoulders. It was not a big deal for Gu Shijio, as she was the one who created the array and was good at using the rocks as her shield. However, it was a little more difficult for Hua Qianjun as he struggled to defend himself. In just a few minutes, his face began to turn pale, and his limbs were numb. Fortunately, Di Fui often passed by and managed to help him out. Otherwise, he would have slumped to the ground purely out of exhaustion. Gu Shijio was sitting at the center of the array. Although she was stressed out too, it was manageable for her at the moment. Di Fui also helped her occasionally, but she would frown when he did. "I can manage this. You should help Guardian Hua." Di Fui looked at her and asked, "Do you not want my help?" Gu Shijio pursed her lips. "I can handle this." Di Fui paused and sighed. "Shijio, sometimes I wish that you were weaker." In fact, he hoped that she could rely on him. He would even be okay if she were acting like a cute baby in front of him. He would certainly prefer that to her try to put everything on her shoulders like a man. He wanted to keep her under his wings so that he could protect her from everything, including the wind and rain. Subconsciously, he thought that it was the way they should interact with each other. He did not want their relationship to be the way it was right now. She was too independent to the extent that she might even want to stand in front of him and protect him. It was not the time to argue with her, so Di Fui left her side and continued casting spells on the rocks. Gu Shijio paused and then smiled awkwardly. In fact, she wanted to be weak sometimes. However, she could not do so whenever she remembered that Di Fui was still a kid. She used to act cute with him when she suffered from amnesia and thought that Di Fui was her fiancé. However, she remembered everything now. How could she be cute to a child who was just 10 years old? Yun Qingluo was indeed a lovely woman. She was just like a little bunny in front of Di Fui. Perhaps that was the reason he liked her? Gu Shijio shook her head as she did not want to think about all these problems right now. She was not usually an indecisive person. However, she was completely helpless when it came to love. She realized that she was not her usual self. In fact, she was distracted and did not notice that the crocodile, which was busy attacking Hua Qianjun, had changed its target. Its claw nearly smashed her. When she noticed it, its claw almost hit her skull. "Watch out!" She heard a loud shout. Hua Qianjun jumped forward and landed in front of her. Swiftly, she quickly teleported away with the man. Unfortunately, she was slightly late. When they landed on a giant rock, she realized that Hua Qianjin's chest was injured. Dark green blood gushed out from the wound, and his face turned purplish in an instant. He was poisoned. Fortunately, all of them had consumed an antidote before they entered the swamp. Otherwise, Hua Qianjun would have been dead by now. Chapter 2391. Her baseline Gu Shijio quickly fed him another antidote, but Hua Qianjun struggled to swallow it. Unfortunately, there was no time for Gu Shijio to treat him at that moment. When she was about to teleport away with Hua Qianjun, he grabbed her dress. "Miss Gu." Gu Shijio frowned. Yes. Since he had saved Gu Zijia's life, she was courteous to him. Hua Qianjun paused, and he seemed to feel it difficult to speak his mind. In the end, he decided to be frank. "I know that our princess is guilty, but she is so miserable as it is. Please, spare her life." Gu Shijio frowned. "The reason you saved me was to ask me to return a favor?" Hua Qianjin's eyelids seemed to close. "I hope you can promise me this one thing." Gu Shijio casually continued. "Did you know that I could have escaped the attack even if you did not save me?" Hua Qianjun did not speak a word. He realized that his current situation would not change Gu Zijia's mind. He softly added, "Okay, just forget that I asked." Gu Shijio took a good look at him and decided to continue. "Although you have done something silly, you did try to save my life. I can make you a partial promise. From today onwards, I will not get her into trouble if she does not challenge me." That was her baseline, and that was already good enough for the injured man. Hua Qianjun heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Hua Qianjun knew that things were complicated between Gu Shijio and Yun Qingluo, even though the former had saved the latter moments ago. Perhaps she only did it as a favor to the Devil King. He would try his best to prevent Yun Qingluo from challenging Gu Shijio in the future. If he could, he would report any incidents to the Devil King so that he could prevent them from getting too serious. It was difficult for Hua Qianjun to find someone he loved. Now that he did, it was his duty to protect her. Throughout their conversation, Gu Shijio had already provided him with basic treatment. However, she did not have enough time to do anything more for the moment. Fortunately, it was curable. She teleported over to Guardian Jean and said, "Try to take out the venomous blood and apply this cream to his chest." Without hesitation, Guardian Jean quickly rushed over to attempt to rescue his teammate. Gu Shijio turned back and looked around the battlefield. She noticed that only Di Fui and Mr. Zhu were left fighting the crocodile. The power of the crocodile was unimaginable since it got stronger. Di Fui and Mr. Zhu could only manage the situation using the array. Things were not looking up for the pair. Mr. Zhu's hair was in a mess, and his robes were torn into shreds. It was as if he was a victim of a stampede. Di Fui still looked tidy and neat, and although he did not seem to be in a hurry, he seemed extremely stressed compared to his usual self. Fortunately, the spell that he cast earlier seemed to work. Furthermore, the number of rocks and bamboos also seemed to increase as Mr. Zhu continued to multiply the bamboos, while Di Fui used spells to make the broken rocks as formidable as the unshattered ones. Gu Shijio was a very observant person. She had a hunch that Di Fui seemed to be waiting for something, an opportunity. However, she had yet to ascertain exactly what it was that he wanted. Although she was curious, enough things were going on at the time, so she just stayed in her position and tried to reduce the pressure on the two men. As for Yun Qingluo, she had been sitting there to meditate like a statue. Her pretty face was ashen, which was certainly a concern for Guardian Jean and the rest. Fortunately, the crocodile did not attack her for the time being, as it was occupied with Di Fui and Mr. Zhu. Since there was no danger, Guardian Jean could concentrate on treating Hua Qianjun's wounds. Gu's Zygius medicine was very useful, as expected. Without too much effort, the poison that had infected Hua Qianjun was almost fully neutralized. However, he could not stand up on his own just yet. Guardian Jean was eager to rejoin the battle, but he did not dare to make any move without instructions from Di Fui. Therefore, he stood at the sidelines, observing the battle. However, as he was excitedly watching the scene, Yun Qingluo, who was at his side, suddenly groaned and vomited blood. Both Guardian Jean and Hua Qianjun were shocked. Meanwhile, Di Fui, who was in the midst of a fierce battle, suddenly flew over. He waved his sleeve, and it seemed like a knife that was aimed at Yun Qingluo. Hua Qianjun instantly rose to his feet. "Devil King, please don't." Before he could finish his sentence, Di Fui's sleeves had covered Yun Qingluo. A colorful light appeared briefly and disappeared just as fast. Under the colorful light, they could hear Yun Qingluo screaming. When the light dissipated, Yun Qingluo had fallen to the ground. Hua Qianjun's hands were shaking. When he was going to see how she was, he heard the crocodile's sorrowful screams, and it also fell to the ground. Its body seemed a little disfigured, and its bones were out of position. Its body was shrinking at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. Its skin gradually changed color, and it now looked like its subordinates from before, though with a slightly larger head. After rolling around in pain, it seemed to have stopped. Di Fui leaped onto the crocodile's body and stabbed his sword right through its chest. He seemed to extract the crocodile's heart and looked relieved. "Take it." The extracted heart was bright red, but there was a small groove on it that seemed as though something had been connected to it before. "Go and refine the medicine you require." Di Fui handed the heart to Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio also breathed a sigh of relief as she took the heart. "Thank you." Di Fui seemed rather disappointed by her reply. Instead of throwing a tantrum, he said, "This will be more effective when it is fresh. You should start refining it now." Gu Shijio did not want to delay the process either. After all, everything else was already prepared. Hence, she started the process. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Master, please look at the princess. Something is not quite right. Hua Qianjun pleaded. Difui turned and slowly walked to Yun Qingluo's side. He looked down at her for a moment and said, "You deserve it." He waved his sleeves, and Yun Qingluo rolled over on the ground. She seemed to have been hiding something which was now exposed. It was a blood-red worm that was shaped like a spoon. It seemed to be biting something. It was biting a heart. It was a relatively small heart, which was probably half the size of a normal human heart. There seemed to be a big hole in it at the moment. Yun Qingluo was in excruciating pain. Her body was curled up like a ball as she rolled on the ground. Yun Qingluo sensed Difui's presence. She trembled as she looked up at him. She raised her hand toward him while her lips trembled uncontrollably. She said 2 words, "Save me." Difui smirked but did not extend his hand to her. Instead, he said, "The heart of the little demon you raised is being consumed, and you'll feel the same feeling in your hollow heart." Does it feel good? Yun Qingluo's body stiffened in fear by his response. She looked panicked. What? Hua Qianjun and Guardian Jean were also confused. They looked at each other and looked back at the little heart that was in Yun Qingluo's possession. It was an evil trick used to raise a demon in the Shuro world. In the early days, many devils were raising little demon in the Devil Kingdom. They raised them for their own use, most often to be a weapon for killing. But who did the little heart belong to? It was very cruel to refine a little demon in the devil world. One needed to kill children cruelly and condense their grievances into a little demon. Due to the process of creating a little demon, the creature would often appear in a gaseous state. Even if it looked like a human being, it had no physical body and, naturally, it would not have a heart. Difui sat on a large stone, faintly glaring at her. Still trying to pretend that you are innocent? Yun Qingluo, do you think that you are that good at hiding the truth? Do you think I really believe you? The rest of the group were puzzled by his harsh remarks, but they could see that Difui was serious, so they merely stayed quiet and continued to listen. Difui spoke again. You told me that the heart of this crocodile could be used to refine the medicine required to detoxify the poison in Gu Zijia's body. That is true. However, if I had killed it by ordinary means, its heart would have been useless to me. It would not be able to produce the required antidote, right? Yun Qingluo closed her eyes. Difui had unraveled her secret plan. There was nothing she could do to defend herself now. However, she wondered how he found out the truth. How did you figure it out? Difui faintly responded. You have been planning this trick for hundreds of years. You even refined such a special poison just to kill Gu Shijio. You hate her so much, yet you told me the way to heal her so easily. Easy? Was it not obvious that you had tortured me ruthlessly? The torture was merely a punishment for your evil deed. However, I am aware that your body has a special characteristic. It is highly resistant to pain. Although you pretended to look like you were in a lot of pain, it was actually very minimal, right? Yun Qingluo bit her lip. She did not expect that Difui to know her deepest secret. Her soul had been reincarnated after she fell into deadly magma in her previous life. When she woke up, she was in the Shuro world. Buther reincarnation was rather unnatural. She did not have parents, but she still retained the memories that she accumulated over her past 3 lives. Furthermore, she was given a body that was highly resistant to pain. After wandering the Shuro world for many years, she finally met Yun Yanli, who had accidentally fallen into this place. Having gravitated to him, she became a tool for Yun Yanli to practice his dark sorcery. However, she did not wish to continue being his tool. When Difui tortured her, she tried very hard to make it seem as though it was excruciating. She thought that her performance was good enough to fool him. Hence, Difui's sudden revelation came as a surprise to her. If you want to deceive someone successfully, you need to tell them most of the truth in your lie. Therefore, I believed what you said when you told me that I needed to retrieve the heart of a specific crocodile. However, I also knew that you would subsequently do something to complicate matters. I was just waiting to figure it out. Yun Qing Luo decided to keep silent. Celestial Master's powers of observation were unparalleled. Find authorized novels in web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. After coming to the poisonous swamp, I only had one thought in my mind. With your skills, you can't come to this swamp to catch the crocodile alone, so there must be someone mighty helping you. Are you willing to admit that it is Yin Yanli? Yes, he and his subordinates helped me. Yun Qingluo's eyes flashed as she finally admitted the truth. Di Fui merely smirked. You came to the Shuro world 100 years earlier than Yun Yanli. Before he came, you must have been practicing dark sorcery here. However, you never disclose your true appearance and only stay behind the scenes. If I were to guess correctly, the sorcery that Yun Yanli used to consume spiritual power from the people in the Shuro world was taught to him by you, right? Yun Qing Luo remained silent, but her eyes could not hide her fear. He knew that he was right. There must be someone behind Yun Qing Luo, but that person was even more deeply hidden than her. Di Fui did not manage to find out anything about that person yet. Since you have already noticed this deception, then, why did you dare to take the crocodile's heart and let Gu Shijio use it? Are you not afraid that the heart is poisonous? Yin Qing Luo questioned. Di Fui faintly replied, If I was not confident that it is safe, do you think I would get it to her? Perhaps you are not aware that I used to study about poisons. I know that certain poisons are connected to their creator. I was not quite sure whether this was true of the crocodile until you attracted it with blood from your heart. The crocodile possessed the characteristics that I expected it to have, and I knew from then on that its heart was indeed the solution. However, what you failed to mention was that I needed to force out of a bug in its heart before it could be used to cure Gu Shijio, and the bug is closely connected with the little demon that you created. Di Fui continued, When I saw that you were using the little demon to manipulate the crocodile during the battle, I knew that I could use the array to drive out the bug in its heart, and now it is ready to be used as an antidote. Find authorized novels in web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Yun Qingluo's face looked more ashen than before. She knew the strength of the silver ring crocodile and did not expect things to end this way. Before entering the swamp, she was convinced that even if it was drawn out, they could not deal with it. In the past, Yin Yanli wanted to use this crocodile to threaten her. He personally brought over 100 top masters to catch it. In the end, he was the only one to return. Yun Yanli had already cultivated to the level of a mighty immortal at that time, and his subordinates had also reached the level of a golden immortal. They were all defeated by the crocodile, so she believed that Di Fui and his small team would not stand a chance. Di Fui was only at the level of a golden immortal, and Zhu Duqing possessed a similar level of spiritual power to Di Fui. Furthermore, Gu Shijio could not use her spiritual power at the moment since she was trying to suppress the poison. Meanwhile, the two guards from the Devil Palace had barely reached the level of a golden immortal. Based on her estimations, she thought that they would not even stand a chance. It was absolutely beyond her expectations that he would be able to beat the crocodile. Even if Di Fui defeated the crocodile, Yun Qing Luo would merely suffer a temporary setback. However, seeing him treat Gu Shijio so well right in front of her had made her blood boil with jealousy. In fact, she could not wait to die together with Gu Shijio. Therefore, when she saw that the crocodile was going to be defeated, she made up her mind to use the little demon's heart to manipulate the crocodile. That was when she entered into the trap set by Di Fui. In fact, when she closed her eyes, she seemed to be in a state of meditation. But she was actually secretly manipulating the little demon's heart to empower the crocodile. Di Fui needed this to happen so that the bug in the crocodile's heart could be drawn out. Therefore, Di Fui was always so concerned about her safety. Chapter 2395. Who had been schemed. 4. The skin of a silver ring crocodile was also not naturally red. It was because of the bug in its heart that had caused its genes to mutate. It was for that reason, too, that it grew to a large size with a strange exterior. Fui's mother was a master of poisons, while his father was divine lord that possessed incredibly vast knowledge. When Fui came to the Shuro world, the divine couple had taught him about some poisons that were specially designed for the Shuro world. It included information on the characteristics of the silver ring crocodile as well. Therefore, after spotting the crocodile, Fui knew that it was mutated. Hua Qinyu and Guardian Jean did not expect there to be so many hidden stories on the matter. They were momentarily stunned by all these revelations. Hua Qinyu looked at the bugs, which were still eating the little demon's heart. They looked like tiny snakes. Yunqing Luo felt so bad that cold sweat started to appear all over her forehead. Her body kept twitching involuntarily, even though she no longer had to pretend that she was in pain. Hua Qinyu was so disappointed by what he had witnessed. He made up his mind and aimed one of his palms at the venomous bugs. He was going to kill one. Since these bugs caused her pain, perhaps killing them would relieve her. Just as he was about to take its life, Fui suddenly issued a glimmer of light to stop him. Hua Qinyu was shocked and took 2 steps back. He kneeled on the ground. Devil King, she used to be your beloved sister. Please spare her life and save her. Fui faintly smiled at him. Are you giving me an order? Hua Qinyu continued to bow. I dare not. I am begging for your mercy. Please, save her. Fui responded slowly. Hua Qinyu, you used to be a big person in the devil world. In the past, you would never surrender, and I wanted to kill you. It was Yunqing Luo who advised me to keep you alive, and she successfully convinced you to surrender to me. Since your surrender, you have made countless contributions to the unification of my kingdom, so I believe that you are important to me. I know that you feel grateful to her for saving your life, so I am fine when you spoil her and occasionally convey news to her about me. However, if you betray me for her, he seemed to be really cold when he said that last sentence. Hua Qinyu was sweating profusely. He knew that he had already angered the Devil King, but he could only kowtow until his forehead was scarred. Devil King, you have the grace to teach me a lesson. I know that it is not right to do this to you, but I cannot let go of her. Can you please spare her life since she has not done anything bad? Has not done anything bad? Fui interrupted him. Do you know how her little demon's heart was created? Hua Qinyu was confused. How? How was it created? Her little demon's heart was formed using the hearts of young women. These women were tortured to death by excruciating means so that she could collect grievances from their deaths. Hua Qinyu was speechless. Even though he was a devil, it was hard to imagine this kind of behavior. In his heart, Yunqing Luo had always been gentle and kind. He would not even think that she would hurt a rabbit. Hence, this revelation was completely out of his expectation. Guardian Jean frowned as well at the thought. Although they were devils, they still despised hypocrisy, and Yunqing Luo seemed to be a master of it. Before these men pledged to serve Fui, they were all people of noble status in the Devil Kingdom and were quite powerful. They were all able to stir chaos or bring order to society. Furthermore, their power allowed them to receive the latest news about anything that they wished to know. After Fui's thorough analysis of the situation, Guardian Jean suddenly recalled something. About 211 years ago, there was a significant incident that shook almost everyone in the Shuro world to the core. It was a case that involved a large number of people. Over 1,000 girls went missing. All of them were of different social standings, different backgrounds, and different physical appearances. However, there were 2 common points that they shared. Firstly, they were all 14 years old. Secondly, their names would either contain the word she or Geo. In the end, all of their bodies were found underground. None survived. Every single one of them was skinned with their tendons and heart removed. All the witnesses from the Devil Kingdom were disgusted by what they found. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. The case had always remained unsolved and was known as the biggest mystery in the Shuro world. Everyone was curious about the identity of the homicidal maniac. He or she must have been really sick to commit such a terrifying and inhumane mass murder. Automatically, People presumed that the killer must be a member of the Devil Kingdom. To Guardian Jean's surprise, the killer was a beauty who looked so delicate and fragile. He took a look at Hua Qianyu and was reminded about one of his relatives that were taken in the mass murder. His beloved niece was killed. Hua Qianyu's brother then lost his mind, knowing that he had lost his daughter in the slaughter. Like every other parent who had lost their daughters, he was obsessed with tracking down the murderer. Later, however, he was found dead, with every drop of his blood drained. There was only fear in his eyes, with a hint of anger. It was an absolutely terrifying scene. Guardian Jean looked at Yunqing Luo and was convinced that she must be a lunatic. So, you're the murderer who skinned the girls, right? Brother Hua, you swore to find the murderer and avenge the deaths of the girls. Hua Qianyu found the truth very unacceptable. He looked at Yunqing Luo with disbelief and asked, Yuan, are you really the murderer who skinned the girls? He wanted to hear what she had to say, even if it was a lie. To his dismay, Yunqing Luo looked up and gave him a wicked smile as she calmly said, Do you know how their families died? They were shocked to death. I tortured the girls in a special chamber that was equipped with a video recording device. The detailed process of their suffering was clearly saved and replayed on one of the walls. The little demon that was slowly moving towards Yunqing Luo by following the bloodstains on the ground. Yunqing Luo did not seem to notice it. With a tight smile, she took a few breaths before adding, I kept the families in a special chamber and tied them up on chairs. I then turned on the screen on the wall to replay the process when their daughters slowly died. Then I cut their wrists so that they would lose blood and die. Say no more. Shut up. You are a lunatic. Hua Qianyu trembled in anger. He clenched his fists tightly with all his veins popping out, seemingly ready to punch her in the face anytime. Nevertheless, Yunqing Luo just had to continue. They would die overnight, either scared or shocked to their death, with every bit of their blood drained. As you know, when a number of killings increased, the dead would carry more and more resentment. When I bathed in their blood, I could completely erase the curse that their daughters left behind when I tortured them. It worked like magic. In this way, I could also allow their resentment to grow even stronger. The more their resentment, the more powerful the little demon. Bitch, you demon. Hua Qianyu shouted at Yunqing Luo in a trembling voice. He then raised his hand to hit her. Yunqing Luo gave him a cynical smile with no intention to avoid his swipe at her. However, before he managed to hit her face, Di Fui interrupted them. Let's keep her alive for now. Hua Qianyu's bloodshot eyes clearly showed his anger. He was confused as to why Di Fui would want to keep her alive after everything she did. Di Fui calmly said, Keep an eye on her, both of you. Keep her alive. He then raised his hand and launched a streak of 7-colored light to remove the venom that was on her chest. He then placed the poison in a small bottle and kept it in his storage bag. Yunqing Luo's expression changed all of a sudden, and she started laughing hysterically. Di Fui, it seems that you are still reluctant to let me go. She claimed. Di Fui gave her a smug look and said, Is that what you think? Please, proceed as you please. Yunqing Luo was irritated. Kill me. Why don't you just kill me? Even if you keep me alive, I will never tell you about the man behind all this. There's no way that is happening. Di Fui answered her briefly, We will see. He then left to check on Gu Shijio, who was still in the array formation. Gu Shijio needed to perform the alchemy process in a quiet environment, so Zhu Duqing made her a bamboo house at the core of the array formation. The house could block out all external sounds. Yunqing Luo watched as he left, but anger and hatred filled her eyes. There was something more behind what she was showing them, something too complicated to explain. Both guardians, Jean and Hua, felt an unreasonable sense of fear. Yunqing Luo, the Devil King has always been kind to you. Don't you feel guilty for setting him up? Tell us about the man behind the plan, and perhaps he will let you go. Guardian Jean tried to persuade her while suppressing his anger. Nevertheless, she laid there with her eyes closed, pretending she had not heard a thing. Without the Devil King's order, he he would have killed her already. Hua Qinyu clenched his fists. He used to be very close to his niece. After she died, he swore to avenge the deaths of his niece and his brother. For years, he had been painstakingly trying to find the murderer, but to no avail. Never did he realize that the murderer had always been by his side. Sadly, he had even fallen for her. Hua Qinyu wanted to slap himself for falling into her trap. Yin Qingluo, I have been blinded, but right now I just want to kill you. Yin Qingluo opened her eyes and looked at him firmly. Do it, she said. All of her evil plans had been thoroughly exposed. There was nothing she was afraid of anymore, so she would gladly accept her fate and hoped that Hua Qinyu would kill her right away. Hua Qinyu did not say anything. Instead, he vented his anger on a big rock by shattering it. You do not dare to kill me. Such a coward. You do not even have the courage to avenge the death of your loved ones. Hua Qinyu, you are nothing but a coward. Yin Qingluo continued to agitate him. Find authorized novels in web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Hua Qianyu's face flushed with indignation, and he was ready to attack her. However, Guardian Jean quickly stopped him. The woman seeks a quick death. Don't grant her wish. Slowly, Hua Qinyu took a deep breath and was finally able to calm down. He continued to observe Yin Qingluo. Her robes were completely soaked in sweat. Perhaps she really did suffer. Yin Qingluo, you have killed so many innocent lives. This is the punishment that you deserve. I will not kill you. Watching you suffer in agony is my kind of revenge. Yin Qingluo looked up and gave him a tight smile. She was actually very weak, with barely any strength left. Quivering, she could not even sit herself up. She did not even have the strength to end her own life. Guardian Jean wanted to end Yin Qingluo, but he had to obey the Devil King's order. There must be a bigger plan that he was not seeing. But what was the Devil King planning on to do? Guardian Jean could not figure out, though he knew that keeping her alive was more than just to interrogate her. For someone who was as careful as Yin Qingluo, it would be difficult to make her speak the truth. Furthermore, keeping her alive would make things complicated for the group, as she was sure to have more evil schemes. Hence, for now, all he could do was to keep his eyes on her and make sure she did not have any opportunity to do something to sabotage them. Difui took a walk around the bamboo house and found a place to sit outside. Zhu Duqing designed the house to be rather uninviting, as he did not want her to be interrupted. Hence, there were no doors or windows. According to Zhu Duqing, Gu Shijio could only leave the house when the alchemy was complete to make sure that there was no disruption while she was working. It was not an easy task to get the guiding herb, so Difui was very anxious about the result as well. He wanted to help her, but he dared not interrupt at this moment. The journey had been exhausting for him, so he closed his eyes to meditate for a moment. In fact, his body was aching from the journey. Difui was not keeping Yin Qingluo alive simply because he felt indebted to her. In fact, he had already repaid her more than she deserved. It was Yin Qingluo who was indebted to him for his kindness. Yet, he could somehow tell that killing Yin Qingluo was unwise at the moment and would probably initiate a series of unfortunate events. Yin Qingluo seemed too desperate to die. In this peculiar place, he had to be extra careful not to make any impulsive decisions. He took a look at Yin Qingluo and saw her lying on the ground helplessly without even the strength to sit up. She kept trying to trigger the two escorts, but they did not even care to listen. Find authorized novels in web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Relieved, he knew that he would always need great people to help him do great things. Hua Qinyu was a real talent that was rare to come by. He was a man of great capability and loyalty. Difui knew that he had feelings for Yin Qingluo, but he needed to see the harsh truth for himself. With this, he would be able to let go of her. Hua Qinyu certainly deserved someone better. Yin Qingluo was unworthy of him. Although the poisonous swamp area was dangerous, it certainly had great views. There were no animals in sight, either. Alone, Zhu Duqing sat guarding the entrance from above and was pleased to find no intrusions. Meanwhile, Difui took the time to meditate and recover. Perhaps he was really tired, so he could feel his muscles aching everywhere. There was an uneasy flow of warm blood across his chest, making him feel rather grumpy. He needed to sit down and keep calm. Whenever he meditated, he could always calm down immediately and immerse himself in the state of complete oblivion. But this time was different. He fell asleep immediately. He had a dream. It was a wet dream. In the dream, there were flashes of light everywhere that brought him back to the village that was concealed within a wizardry barrier. He had just eaten animal testes and penis. Gu Shiju then came by to offer her bed to him and asked that they sleep together. It was a crazy night that was unforgettable. Many times, he reminisced every sweet little moment that he had during that night. He was doing so again in his dream. Certainly, the dream was not a complete reflection of what happened that day. In the dream, he felt like he had just woken up from a night of lovemaking. She had already left the bed, so he woke up and went outside to look for her. He walked out of the white tent and saw a big lake. Chapter 2399. Which party had been schemed? 8. It was a vast, limpid lake with seemingly no end. There was a splash from one corner. Someone was there. Her hair was soaking wet, but her face was stunning. The woman was Gu Shijio. She was gracefully swaying her arms about to stay afloat. Her fair skin sparkled under the sun. It was a breathtaking sight. Difui's heart pounded in excitement as he stood watching her swim. "Baby, why did you go swimming so early?" he asked with a smile. He started to think if he should join her in the lake. He had just made love to her not long ago, but his fierce desire started to ignite again. He wanted her. He was even thinking about making love to her in the lake. Difui knew that he was desperate, like a famished wolf that could not wait to indulge in its prey. In the lake, Gu Shijio gave him a wave with a smile. "Fui, will you join me?" Difui froze momentarily. He somehow recalled that Gu Shijio had been addressing him as the Devil King recently. It had been a very long time since she called him by his name. The familiarity was overwhelming. He stood in a daze by the lake. Gu Shijio tilted her head in confusion. "What is wrong? Don't you want to swim with me?" Difui sat down by the water and sighed. "I feel quite tired today. You should keep swimming. I will join you later." Gu Shijio did not want to trouble him anymore and continued her swim. She thought she would try to impress him with her excellent swimming skills and fancy moves to cheer him up. Her every move was captivating. In a twist, she turned around and kept her face up, revealing her elegant body that was loosely covered and offering a fair display of her bosom. With another turn, she dived into the water head-on, thus revealing her ample hips for a moment. Her hips were perfectly shaped, which made his blood boil with lust. Suddenly, she raised her long legs above the water, drawing his attention to her body even more. In those brief moments, Difui could already feel his body burning. He wanted her so badly. He suddenly thought that perhaps he should jump into the lake just to calm his desire in the cold water. With a sigh, he waved back at her and said, "Shijio, come up here." Gu Shijio agreed promptly. She was only wearing a loose top and a pair of loose pants. Nonetheless, her soaked clothes were tightly wrapped on her skin, revealing her seductive figure. She came up to him and asked, "Fui, what is the matter?" The look in Difui's eyes darkened. "Baby, how do you normally address me? Can you address me like you used to before?" Gu Shijio thought about it for a moment with her head tilted. "Celestial Masters wa," she said with a smile. Difui smiled at her too. "That is it," he answered while locking his eyes on her. He then invited her to sit down next to him. "Come here. Sit next to me. We need to talk." "All right." Gu Shijio walked towards him and was ready to sit down when a seven-colored light suddenly flashed before her eyes. The light completely surrounded her. It was all too sudden and too close, so she had no chance to escape. Surrounded by the light, she could feel her entire body burning in flames. She screamed out loud and wanted to jump into the water to ease the pain. However, the seven-colored ray had completely bound her, restricting her even from the slightest movement. Her skin was slashed and cut as the result of the violent light, thus causing her a considerable amount of pain. Blinded by the seven-colored light, she called out, "Celestial Masters, well, what are you doing?" Di Fui slowly rose and threw an icy look at her. "Yin Qing Luo, did you really think that I would not know it is you?" Stunned, the female quickly lifted her head. "How did you recognize me?" Yin Qing Luo thought that she had set up the illusion remarkably well. Di Fui smiled as she glared at her. "Both of you are completely different. Why are you so surprised that I can recognize you?" Initially, Di Fui could not recognize her. After all, it was a dream that originated from his previous sexual encounter with Gu Shijio. Besides that, he was aware that he was just dreaming. Hence, he did not find it suspicious when he saw Gu Shijio swimming in the lake. However, he began to feel that things were strange when he was about to enter the lake. Gu Shijio usually dressed appropriately. She was also a rather prim and proper person. Hence, she would not seduce others in such an overt manner. Of course, since he was aware that it was a dream, it was reasonable for Gu Shijio to behave slightly differently. Therefore, he needed to test the water again to find out if he was right. He was finally certain that it was Yin Qing Luo disguising as Gu Shijio when she addressed him as Celestial Master Zhua. Needless to say, he was shocked that Yin Qing Luo managed to enter his dream. Furthermore, he noticed that his body temperature was rising rapidly. It was the symptom of consuming an aphrodisiac. It was rather uncommon for him to be poisoned, so he tried to sense his internal bodis environment and realized his blood circulated at a high speed. He could also feel energetic worm-like creatures moving in his circulatory system. Wherever the worms went felt swollen and hot. Also, it was a chilly day, but he was sweating. Hence, he knew that Yin Qing Luo tricked him. But how did it happen? Since Yin Qing Luo's trap had been exposed, she decided not to hide it anymore. She slowly walked over with a pair of charming eyes and asked, "Celestial Master Zhua, are you feeling uneasy?" Her rather hoarse voice was not very seductive to Di Fui, though it might be sweet for some perverts. Di Fui replied as he watched her getting closer to him. "When did you poison me? Yin Qing Luo, are you not afraid that I will shred your soul into pieces?" His tone was gentle, but his words were ruthless. Yin Qing Luo paused for a moment. She did not dare to step closer when she thought about the seven-colored power he possessed. However, she seemed to recall something all of a sudden and chuckled. "Fui, I am not afraid of anything now." She smiled evilly and continued, "Celestial Master Zhua, I just want you. I'm willing to pay any price just to have you, even if I need to trade my soul to the devils." Di Fui looked at her as if he was looking at a crazy woman. His fingers slowly grasped together with seven-colored rays glowing from his fingertips. It seemed that he was going to attack her at any time. Yin Qing Luo did not notice the danger at first, but seemed to laugh slightly later. "Celestial Master Zhua, do you want to kill me?" "Let me tell you the truth. You can't survive even if you kill me." Di Fui frowned. Yin Qing Luo smiled. "You must be thinking this is your dream, and you can control everything. Is that not the case?" Di Fui asked calmly. "Of course not. Celestial Master Zhua, this is not your dream. You are my preset illusion. If you do not have the antidote, you will never wake up. You will suffer here forever." Di Fui's heart sank at the thought of being stuck here with her. He was surprised that he was tricked, even though he had been very cautious. Since Yin Qing Luo had certainly executed this plan out very well, she would definitely rub it in his face. Indeed, Yin Qing Luo continued, "Do you know why the poison is named irreversible? It is because we can't go back once it is started. No other woman can enter the illusion. Hence, I'm the only one that can help you now. An expert taught me this, and I needed to trade my soul and blood as payment. He made a spell and cast down a beast for me. The poisonous blood of the beast you slaughtered earlier had entered your body once you killed it." Di Fui asked as he was trying to clear the poison silently. "So, you used the beast earlier in order to cast the illusion on me? The one almost killed you?" "Yes, that was it. It was so lazy to move." That is why I knew where to find it and intentionally woke it up. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. That was the trap. Yunqing Luo was indeed obsessed with getting him. Did you not worry that I could not save you in time? Yunqing Luo chuckled. I was well prepared. If you could not save me, I could escape anyway. But as it was ferocious, I knew that you would definitely kill it. Di Fui pursed his lips. Although he did not express his emotions, the sweat on his forehead showed the chaotic circumstance that he found himself in. Yunqing Luo had a perfect plan. She knew she was still useful, and Di Fui would not watch her die. Hence, she took the risk. But who was the psychopath who gave her such a dirty idea? It was a potent poison. Di Fui was very knowledgeable, so he knew that there was no way to clear the poison or even soothe the effect. Although he tried his best to suppress it, his sweat had soaked his clothes, and his blood was circulating like a roller coaster. Yunqing Luo did not stop staring at him, and she could notice every little change in his body. She knew the power of her poison, and she knew that he could not take it. No man could. She checked the time and realized that it was almost the perfect time for her to act. She stepped closer and spoke again. Celestial Masters, am the only one who can help you. Do not worry. We're just having sex in this illusion. You're not betraying her. She will never know, so don't push me away. Her eyes were very seductive as her body slowly drew closer to Di Fui. Are you suffering? You will be fine as long as you make love to me. You might even become more powerful than before. Are you not afraid that it'll kill you later? Di Fui was sweating as he asked. Yunqing Luo laughed out loud as she lifted her head. I have paid my dues to get this poison. It'll die right after we have sex, and my souls will disappear forever. Di Fui was pissed. You are insane. Celestial Masters, I am crazy. I'm crazy about you. I'm willing to be your antidote. It'll please you the way you want me to, and no one will never know. Yunqing Luo was like the witch who tried to persuade Xiaohua to take the forbidden fruit. Her voice words were certainly alluring to any man. I'm fine with you imagining that I look like her. In fact, that is my physical outlook to you right now. As she was walking closer, Di Fui was sweating terribly as if he could not control his mind anymore. He contemplated his options. One was a dead end, and the other was a happy playground. Even a lunatic knew which one to choose. Di Fui was very smart, and he always made wise decisions. Therefore, Yunqing Luo was very confident of the answer that he would choose. He would definitely agree with her demand. Everything would be worth it as long as they made love this one time. Slowly, she leaned on Di Fui and attempted to hug him. Celestial Master, a sudden change happened at this very moment. Just as she was about to place her hands on him, a seven-colored ray was launched all of a sudden that coiled around Yunqing Luo's arms. It caused her to feel a sharp pain. When she opened her eyes, she was suspended in midair. What followed her was an icy phrase. Yunqing Luo, you are disgusting. Get off. Apparently, Di Fui's spell was powerful and ruthless. As she opened her eyes in midair, she noticed that her arms were torn apart from her body with blood gushing out at both ends. Yunqing Luo was surprised that Di Fui could still hurt her in her own illusion. All of a sudden, there was a huge hole in the sunny sky, and she was helplessly sucked toward it. There was no way for her to return, even though she tried to resist the force. Di Fui, you will die. You will die if you don't make love to me. She was screaming with all of her energy. Di Fui continued to push her into the giant hole. He did not even bother to respond to what she had said. The giant hole was a torturous place, and Yunqing Luo's soul would burn in there for 49 days until it vanished forever. And, just like that, Yunqing Luo disappeared. At this point, the poison that Yunqing Luo had used was starting to take a toll on Di Fui as he felt as if he was going to explode. His eyes suddenly focused on the lake, and he wanted to jump into it. However, he could not do that at that very moment. Something was strange about the lake. Perhaps it might aggravate the situation. He struggled to get up and began to find his way out. Half an hour later, he was still clueless. He knew it was a nightmare, but he just could not wake up. The tent was burning, the grass was hot, and even the lake was boiling. It was frustrating, and due to the extreme heat, he began to have an illusion. Every single illusion was seductive as he saw Gu Shijio everywhere. Initially, he could not help but rush over to hug her, only to find that she disappeared again and again. The entire experience was tormenting. It was indeed playing out the way Yunqing Luo had said. He was left there alone in that beautiful place. Even if Gu Shijio realized something was wrong after making the cure for herself, she could not enter the illusion to save him. The only hope now was that he wished he could enter her dream. That was still a possibility for him. If he wanted to enter her dream, he would have to wait until she was fast asleep. But when would that be? The alchemy process was long and tiring, and not to mention very physically draining. She would definitely take a rest when she was done, right? It would be better if he could watch her first before entering her dream, as opposed to directly entering her dream, where he could not tell what was happening around her. The skill of entering other people's dreams required a great amount of spiritual power to perform, so he would not be able to use it repeatedly. Desperately, Difui tried to use his spiritual power to put his burning desire to an end while calculating the time he had left. He thought that she would be asleep very soon, so he started to perform the skill right away. To his surprise, he was caught in this inescapable illusion with no way to enter her dream. He sat there, observing the beautiful scenery around him while cold sweats started to soak his forehead. This time, he was afraid that there was no way that he could escape. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "Do you regret your decision now?" Actually, Yunqing Luo was right. No one from the outside world would know about what happened between the two of you. Why do you have to stand your ground so firmly? If you change your mind, you can still release her. Difui sat up straight while cautiously looking around. Who is it? Show yourself. Could there be another person in that space? No one answered, so he could not tell if anyone else was really present. However, the same voice would speak over and over again every few minutes. It was rather annoying after a few times. "I will never do anything that I will regret later," Difui finally answered. "I can let her out, but I will shatter her soul into pieces in the most brutal way. When my needs are not fulfilled, I can always distract myself by torturing her," he calmly said. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. The voice finally stopped talking. Difui noticed it and quickly asked, "Who are you?" The voice remained quiet. "If you refuse to tell me, I will get Yunqing Luo out here and kill her right away." The voice answered idly, "Her life has nothing to do with me. You can do anything to her as you please." At first, Difui thought that the voice was preset by Yunqing Luo to help her in times of danger. Now he was unsure. He continued to ask a few more questions, but the voice never appeared again. No matter how he threatened it, it never resurfaced. The vast space was all for him, alone. His senses became more and more sensitive to danger, so he closed his eyes to try to assess his environment. And for the first time, he felt hopeless. Images of Gu Shijio started to flash before his eyes, haunting him. He felt frustrated as he had not had the chance to explain to her that she was the only one that he truly loved, no one else. When she was done producing the cure, the first thing that would happen was that she would see him asleep. In fact, Yunqing Luo would be sleeping too. Knowing her nature, she would definitely find it inappropriate to interrupt him while he slept. She would probably greet the two guards and leave swiftly with Zhu Duqing. Even if she noticed that something was not right about him, there was nothing she could do. Her spiritual power was not high enough to support the dream-entering spell. Difui knew her well, indeed. When the alchemy process was finally completed, she heaved a long sigh of relief. She wanted to swallow the pill right away, but hesitated. Difui had been working just as hard to help her produce the pill. Hence, she felt that she should show it to him first. Therefore, she held the pill in one hand and knocked on the bamboo wall with another in a particular pattern. 3 long knocks followed by 4 short ones. It was a sign that she wanted to exit. Chapter 2402. The Surge 2. Zhu Duqing had a special connection to the bamboo house, so he quickly made an opening for Gu Shijio after he heard her knocking. He smiled as soon as he saw Gu Shijio slowly emerge from his soundproof fortress. Master, congratulations on the successful alchemy. Gu Shijio was tired, but her spirits remained high. Where are they? Zhu Duqing hissed to convey his disapproval. Di Fui seems to be resting. More accurately, he is meditating. Yinqing Luo is hurt. The men are keeping an eye on her. They are there. Di Fui was sitting at a spot that was not too far away from the bamboo house. Gu Shijio spotted him almost immediately. Di Fui sat with his legs crossed and his eyes closed. He sat there calmly, like a man in enlightenment. Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat. She always found him unusually charming when he sat like that. It was like someone she knew from a long time ago. Quickly, she moved her eyes away from him and decided to leave him alone. She should not interrupt the man in his meditation. Distracting him could waste his efforts. Zhu Duqing was still beside her. He took a look at the pill in her hand and asked, "Is this the pill that you have just made? Does it work? Should we wake Yinqing Luo up and let her have a look?" "No need. I know what I am doing." Gu Shijio turned down his suggestion. She was confident in her abilities. Also, she did not want to talk to Yinqing Luo anymore. She then asked Zhu Duqing to secure the perimeters while she went looking for a quiet place to take the pill. After that, she proceeded to use her spiritual power to set the pill in effect. About an hour later, she was delighted to find out that the toxins in her body had been completely cured. She could finally feel a sense of relief. "I am well," she exclaimed, with a hopeful leap into the air. Her voice echoed, so everyone could hear it. Zhu Duqing congratulated her first. Then, both escorts, Jin and Hua, heard her and quickly approached to congratulate her as well. Gu Shijio noted their kindness with thanks. Their teamwork had left her with a great positive impression. The men were still responsible for Yinqing Luo's safety, so they quickly returned to their spot after some small talk. They did not want to comment too much on the situation. The Devil King was only close by, so he should be the one to do the talking. They should only be involved upon request. Also, the Devil King had always been unpredictable. Hence, they could barely understand what he was thinking. Therefore, they dared not take the matter lightly for fear that they might ruin his plan. "Master Shijio, now that you are healthy again, should we leave? This is not a place that we should extend our stay," Zhu Duqing proposed. Gu Shijio gave Di Fui another look and realized that he was still meditating. He did not even move his eyes. Their departure from this place was certainly unrelated to Di Fui. Gu Shijio thought about it and decided not to disturb him. She talked to Guardian Jin and told him that she was about to leave. Panicked, he said, "Miss Gu, can you leave when the Devil King is awake? He worried about you a lot. At least tell him that you are well and healthy before you leave." Gu Shijio politely replied, "There is no need for that. You can tell him on my behalf. I have other matters to attend to, so I really should not stay. Please let him know that I will surely repay his kindness someday for what he has done for me today." She then offered him a few bottles of medicine. These pills can cure many types of common toxins. You will be cured as long as the toxin is not something complicated. This is my token of appreciation for your help today. Guardian Jean was well aware of her vast knowledge in the field of medicine, and particularly in the use of poisons. The pills must be something precious that he could not possibly obtain from anywhere. Therefore, he accepted the gift happily and thanked her. "All right, Master Shijio, let us go," Zhu Duqing urged her again, somewhat impatiently. Gu Shijio took another look at Di Fui, who was still unconscious. She finally made up her mind and decided to leave with Zhu Duqing. "Master Shijio, where do you plan to go after this?" "I will find a quiet place to practice and recover." She needed to go back to heaven and from there, return to the Saha world again. According to the rules, she was not allowed to leave the Saha world for more than 6 months. It had already been 2 years. She could not help but wonder if the Saha world was in terrible chaos. The only reason for her return to heaven was to recover so that she would be able to return to the Saha world at full strength. Her spiritual power was already at level 9. If she worked hard, she could achieve level 10 in no time. And when she finally achieved level 10, she would then face a catastrophe and ascend to heaven. That was the usual practice, but was it the same in the Shuro world? I know a quiet place. It is a place with a strong spiritual aura. Zhu Duqing knew about the Shuro world very well, so he could show her many places that not many people knew about. He was confident that not many knew about the secret place that he was about to show her, not even Di Fui, the one who was known to be knowledgeable about everything. Zhu Duqing was proud of himself for a moment. He continued to emphasize the advantages of different pieces of land for her to choose from. Confidently, he offered to take her wherever she wanted to go. However, to his dismay, Gu Shijio did not respond to his enthusiasm. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. This man is so reckless. How can he be meditating so deeply in such a dangerous place? He does not even have someone to guard him. Is this because his upbringing forced him to be fearless? Her thoughts continued. He kept saying that he cared about her injury, but instead of protecting her, he fell into a deep state of meditation. The scene was similar to a woman who had just given birth and left the operation room, only to realize that her husband was sleeping soundly outside. She knew that he must be tired, but he would not be so deeply asleep while she was busy trying to save her life, right? It did not seem right. Di Fui would not do so. Was there something wrong? Master Shijio, are you listening to me? Zhu Duqing had to wave his hand to see if she was paying attention. I need to go back to have a look at Di Fui. Gu Shijio left him alone and teleported. Zhu Duqing was shocked. They were almost at the end of the tunnel by that time. Even though he admired her teleportation ability, it was a burden for him, too, as he found it hard to keep up with her. His complexion was good. His pulse was steady. His eyelids were sealed with no movement from his eyeball. He did not look unwell. However, there was no way she could wake him up. Gu Shijio had been circling him for 8 rounds and tried every possible way to wake him up. She even used her knowledge of acupuncture points and applied it between his thumb and index finger as well as the middle of his upper lip. He was still unresponsive, not even moving his lashes. It was like his soul had just left his body. This should not be happening, no matter how focused he was on his meditation. Miss Gu, Yinqing Luo, is in the same condition. She is not responding at all. Guardian Jean came reporting about what he just found. Could their souls have left their bodies together to do something? Zhu Duqing, who had made his way back, suggested. Did he tell you anything before he started meditating? Gu Shijio asked Guardian Jean. Chapter 2404. The Search for Nothing Noteworthy. He only asked me to keep an eye on Yunqing Luo. Guardian Jean was not too concerned as he shared what he could recall. Miss Gu, sometimes the Devil King will leave his body behind to conduct an investigation. I believe this time is the same. It did not sound right to Gu Shijio, however. If Di Fui were going to take Yin King Luo's soul away, he would not choose a spot that was so far away from her. He should be sitting next to her. Doing so would make it easier for his men to guard the surrounding, as his body would become an easy target without his soul inside it. Di Fui would not do something so stupid in such a dangerous place. Had they fallen into some evil trick? The trick must have been so carefully planned that even experienced warriors did not realize that these 2 people's souls were taken away from their bodies. It was even more impressive since the escorts had never left Yinqing Luo alone the entire time. Gu Shijio wanted to ask them for more information, but she was distracted when Di Fui's body suddenly trembled involuntarily. Cold sweat started to soak his robes. She grabbed his hand and was surprised by his burning palm. Miss Gu, Yinqing Luo, seems to be in trouble. Her body is shaking violently. Also, her pulse is getting weaker. Guardian Hua came reporting in a panicked state. Their souls had indeed left their bodies together and were now caught in what they could only assume was a troubling situation. How complicated could the situation be that even Di Fui was unable to solve it? Gu Shijio tried to calm down, though her heart was still pounding in a surge of anxiety. It was not the time to find out how his soul left his body. Instead, she needed to know how to find them and save them. Gu Shijio used the soul-tracking spell to start looking for the lost souls. She should be able to detect their location as long as they were still within the range of 1,000 miles. However, both attempts failed miserably. Apparently, they must have been trapped in some wizardry barrier that was more than 1,000 miles away. If he really needed to go that far to attend to something urgent, he would have told the two men first before departing. He had disappeared without informing any of his men. Therefore, it was reasonable to believe that their souls were currently trapped in some wizardry barrier. Gu Shijio quickly explored her surroundings but could not find any wizardry barrier. How was she going to find them? His soul must not be too far away from his body for a period longer than 24 hours, after which time his body would be damaged irreversibly. Since Gu Shijio had spent 4 hours in the bamboo house trying to produce the cure, she knew that she had about 20 hours to find his soul before it was too late. Desperately, she tried to recall everything that she knew in order to find him, but her spiritual power was too weak to perform the spells that she needed. Master, I have an idea. Maybe it will help you find him. The firmament stone suddenly spoke to her in her mind. Gu Shijio felt like hope had returned. Ow! Master, before I tell you, I need to ask you some questions. Will you choose to save him in times of great danger, regardless of what has happened between him and Yunqing Luo? She was surprised, but did not hesitate. Yes, she would never abandon him, no matter what. The firmament stone seemed relieved. Regardless of the price that you have to pay, it had to be completely certain. Of course, because she loved him, Gu Shijio could set him free if he had indeed fallen for someone else. She was willing to part ways with him and become strangers again as long as he was happy. Furthermore, she loved him enough to risk her life for him, so she would pay any price just to make sure he was safe, including her own life. The firmament stone was finally relieved. That is good, Master. Now listen to me. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.